Hi, I'm Gail Z and Morgan Bryce, and I want to welcome you to our segment of the Publishers Roadshow for our two imprints, Soul Publishing and Darkwind Press. They're the imprints that we have for our books, and by we I mean me and my husband and co-author and collaborator Larry N. Martin. So stay tuned. I'm going to take you on a whirlwind tour of what came out in 2020, what's coming out in 2021, what series you may not have caught up on, and some other good stuff you're just going to have to watch to see what happens. So thanks for joining us, and stay tuned. Buckle in. We got a lot of territory to cover, and it's going to go fast and furious. See you in there. Hi, this is Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce, and together with my husband Larry N. Martin, we run Soul Publishing and Darkwind Press. So let me talk to you a little bit about some of the exciting things that have happened even in this crazy 2020 and what's coming up in 2021, and just kind of take you on a fast tour of what we're all about. So new in 2020, even with all the craziness, we managed to knock some books out and move along in 2020. Maybe not quite as many as we originally thought we might get to, but hey, I'll take any win that I can get this year. So we did manage to keep several of our series moving forward, and of course there will be more from all of the series as we move into next year. Here's what came out in 2020. Sellsword's Oath is the second Assassins of Landria book, and it and the audio book came out this year, early in the year. Then Monster Mash and Creature Feature, which are in the Spell, Salt, and Steel series from Falstaff Books, also came out. And Black Sun, which is the second in the Joe Mack series. And Chicagoland is coming up, but Black Sun came out, and that's our Roaring Twenties Monster Hunter. Witch of the Woods and Ghosts of the Past are second and third Wasteland Marshals books, also out this year. And then audio with Inheritance and Sons of Darkness finally getting their audio due. And then I was also in several anthologies or collections this year. There'll Be Peace When You Are Done as a collection of articles and comments by the fans and cast and crew of Supernatural, talking about the legacy of the show and what it's meant to them. And so I was really, really thrilled to be asked to write a chapter for that book. Witches, Warriors, and Wise Women is an urban fantasy anthology from Perspective Press. And exactly what the title says, what you see is what you get. It's a lot of action adventure with kick-ass women. Across the Universe was one of those kind of fun, odd anthologies edited by Michael Ventrella and Randy Dawn. And the prompt was that they wanted to see what we thought the Beatles might have been if they hadn't been rock gods. So they could be anything. They didn't even have to be human. We just needed to come up with stories about who they might have been. So of course, mine envisions them as a version of the Scooby Gang. And it was just a lot of fun because it was so totally off the wall. And sometimes you just have to do that. Now, what's coming up in 2021? Well, Fugitive's Vow is already turned in and in process, and that is book 3 of the Assassins of Landria. That should be out in January, along with the audio book. So ebook, print, audio should all be coming out by the end of January. Legacy is the next Deadly Curiosities novel, and what you're seeing on this screen is a couple of cover reveals that we haven't shown anybody else yet, so you're in on the secrets here. But Legacy is going to be the next Deadly Curiosities novel. Of course, that picks up shortly after Inheritance and follows along with the adventures of Cassidy Kincaid and her crew. Reckoning is the third and final book in the Darkhurst series, and that's the one that I'm working on right now, trying to bring it to a close. So we expect that that'll be out probably late spring. Charon is the next Night Vigil novel. And of course, that is the ex-priest and the former FBI agent hunting demons in and around Pittsburgh. And Renegade is the second Salvage Rat book by Larry. And of course, Salvage Rat is his space opera series. And then Spark of Destiny is the long-awaited sequel to Iron and Blood in the Jake Desmond adventure. It's our steampunk alternative history, Victorians as they never were and should have been. And of course, you know, we're going to go to Cuba and deal with the sinking of the Maine and find out that there was a lot more to it than, you know, generally hit the history books. So those are the novels coming next year. Now, of course, we also have Chicagoland, which is the third Joe Mack adventure. And that's set Roaring 20s, late Roaring 20s in Chicago. Elliot Ness calls Joe and his allies in because when they arrested Al Capone, he left an occult and supernatural mess behind him. And somewhere in the tunnels beneath Chicago, there's a vampire. So Joe is on the job, and that one is turned into Falstaff Books. Should have it out hopefully sometime in January. Looking forward to seeing that one. We'll have some more books in the Spell, Salt, and Steel, Joe Mack and Wasteland Marshals series. There's one more Joe Mack adventure after Chicagoland. And then there's one more in season 2 for Spell, Salt, and Steel. And there will be a season 3 of that. There's one more in the Wasteland Marshals first season. And then the next offering in that series is going to be a full novel as opposed to collected novellas. And then all of the non-novella sized books have been sold to Tantor with the exception of Spark of Destiny. So we'll be getting audiobooks in due time from all of them. I can't predict the audiobook release schedule. I don't control it. I'm always happy when it pops up and they're working on it, but I do know that they will eventually come. So that's what we're looking at coming forward in 2021. Now, just a quick reminder, we have a number of series that are current and ongoing. So fitting some of those new and upcoming titles into their requisite places here. So Chronicles of the Necromancer series, of course, this is the one that started it all with the Summoner. And you can see all the books in the series there going horizontally across the slide. We did end up pulling the ebooks for the first 4 books. The long story, the contract reverted. We had a chance to bring them under our umbrella. And we also revised them and found that the initial proofreading had not been terrific. So no story changes, just some cleanup. And so that needs to get proofread one more time, and then those will be coming back out. So the ebooks will be coming out again. And so if you've noticed, then that's why those 4 books don't have ebooks at the moment. They will be back and better than ever. Of course, The Shadowed Path and The Dark Road are actually prequels to The Summoner, and those are the backstory for John Mark Vahanian, the cynical mercenary that you meet in The Summoner. Talks about how he became that person. And the 2 collections of what were originally released as short stories and novellas come all the way up to about 5 years before the beginning of The Summoner. Then I am really planning on getting started writing the Legacy of the Necromancer series in 2022 and 2021 for release in 2022. And that series will pick up about 17 years after The Dread and look at the repercussions. You know, no good deed goes unpunished, and saving the world works the same way as everything else. So we'll see the repercussions of all the things that happened in the Chronicles series play out and kind of come home to bite people on the butt. So that's what's going on with that series. Now, Ascendant Kingdoms Saga, this series is complete. You have the first, the 4 books of the actual series: Iceforged, Reign of Ash, War of Shadows, Shadow and Flame. This is the medieval monster hunter series. I'm sorry, this is the post-apocalyptic medieval epic fantasy. So you've got a main character who's been exiled to an Arctic prison colony, and he's the only guy who's going to be able to fix the problem. You've had a war of magical destruction that turns the magic feral and releases it from human ability to control, with all kinds of nasty consequences. And then you've got a group of outlaws trying to put this right. Of course, the prequel collection of novellas, Convicts and Exiles, deals with Blaine's time as a convict and then as a colonist at the very beginning of Ice Forged. Folks wanted to know what happened in that several-year gap between the initial action in the novel and the rest of the main thrust of the novel. Convicts and Exiles fills that gap. So you can read it in whatever order you want, but it is there to answer those questions. And that series is complete, at least as far as anything that I'm anticipating right now, but never say never, because, you know, a great idea strikes you. And you might just have a whole new book in mind. Darkhurst. As I mentioned before, Reckoning is the book that I'm finishing up right now. Hope to have that out sometime this spring. And it's the third and final book in the Medieval Monster Hunter series with the outlaw Undertaker brothers and their friends who are trying to get rid of the monsters that have been killing their families and friends and neighbors, only to find out that there's a much bigger conspiracy than they ever expected, and they are in way over their heads. So that began with Scourge, which won the Manly Wade Wellman Award a few years back. Vengeance, both of those are out and in ebook, print, and audiobook, and then Reckoning is coming soon, and it will also be in audiobook at some point after it comes out. Assassins of Landria. Now, this is the buddy flick epic fantasy series. It's a little shorter, a little snarkier. It is not as many different braided plot threads together. It's really intended to be epic fantasy for people who don't have time to read conventional epic fantasy. I've had so many people come up to me and look at some of the big, thick books that I write and say, oh, I really love reading epic fantasy, but I just don't have time anymore. Well, this is not only a little shorter and funnier and lighter, but it's also really made for people who don't have the time to invest in big fat fantasy. All of the fantasy feels with less of the fantasy length. So there are 2 books out right now. Fugitive's Vow, as I mentioned before, comes out in January along with the audiobook. And then there are 3 more books to come in the series. So that's a fun series. Of course, we've got Rhett and Ridge, who are the elite assassins. And if you can think of Butch and Sundance as medieval assassins, you're pretty close to the mark. Deadly Curiosities. Now we're crossing over from the first 4 series, which are epic fantasy, to urban fantasy. And Deadly Curiosities is set in Charleston, South Carolina. Cassidy Kincaid is a psychometric who can read the history and magic of objects by touching them. And she and her friends and allies save the world from supernatural threats. So we have 4 books so far. And as I mentioned earlier, Legacy will be the 5th novel. And Trifles and Folly and Trifles and Folly 2 are collections of short stories and novellas, many of which previously appeared in anthologies or collections, some of which were just released directly to ebook, compiled there in order so that you can read them in consecutive order, and they build on each other. And these are really extra stories. Think of them as extra episodes that occur between and around the main books. So you get to know some of the side characters a little better. You get to see a little more of the personalities and some things that didn't make it into full books. They're all complete stories, but they're a little shorter in scope. And they're really kind of a fun way to spend more time in Charleston, in Cassidy's Charleston, and get to know everybody in the place a little bit better. So that's an ongoing series, and Legacy will be the next one there. The Night Vigil. So this is the ex-priest and former FBI agent hunting demons in and around Pittsburgh. And Sons of Darkness is the first book there, just came out on audiobook. Charon is the next book, and again, that should be out sometime this spring. And then there will be more books in that series to come. One of the things with the urban fantasy series that I write, and that Larry and I write for Falstaff, is that all of them, with one exception, all of them overlap and cross over with each other. So the characters know each other, they show up in each other's worlds, they help each other out, they research lore, they show up to help in a fight. And so you'll see Travis and Brent from this series show up in Deadly Curiosities and in some of my Mork and Bryce books, and get referenced in some of the Spell, Salt, and Steel books. So there is, as some of my readers have joked, the Martin extended universe, but it's a lot of fun. I figured that hunters would know each other. It's a relatively small world. We're talking about people who are all in a pretty defined East Coast area, and it makes sense to me that they would know each other and they would form alliances and friendships and help each other out. So that is a lot of fun for me to write, and I hear that the readers enjoy seeing the characters from other books show up, because of course you get a little different perspective when you see characters from one series show up in another series, get to see them through someone else's eyes in a different setting. It just kind of, to me, it brings a reality to it that the world is bigger than just this one book, and there are all these other things going on around the edges. So the Night Vigil, Charon, will come out later this year, and there will be more after that. Now, Larry and I do 3 series for Falstaff Books: Spell, Salt, and Steel, Wasteland Marshals, and Joe Mack Adventures. Spell, Salt, and Steel is a snarky monster hunter in the wilds of Pennsylvania. These are the Mark Wojcik books, and they are also spin-offs of John Hartness's Bubba the Monster Hunter series. So there are some definite ties to Bubba and references to some of the things that those 2 worlds share. And so those are connected to not only John's Bubbaverse, but loosely to everybody else who's writing in the Bubbaverse, because they're all New Templar Knights. And so Night Moves, Monster Mash, and Creature Feature are the books so far in season 2. Spell, Salt, and Steel season 1 collects all 4 of the first 4 novellas into one volume. And then when the 4th Spell, Salt, and Steel comes out this spring, we'll, I'm sure, see a collection, but if you don't want to wait, they do come out individually as novellas. Cauldron and Black Sun are the first 2 Joe Mack adventures, and Joe, of course, is an immortal who is in 1929 Chicago and 1929 Roaring Twenties. He was, as he lay dying at the Homestead riots, he swore vengeance and swore his soul to Crocus, god of blacksmiths, who made him his champion. And so with that additional ability and some magic around the edges, Joe takes on some impossible cases. And together with his supernatural Secret Service friend, Jack West, and an irrepressible heiress who helps everything, all the doors open, and that is Sarah Grace Harringworth McAllen. And so those are a fun set of adventures set in Prohibition times. Wasteland Marshals is near future, post-apocalyptic, and a little darker, a little grittier, but you've got the last 2 U.S. Marshals on the East Coast doing the best they can to keep order. And of course, you know, there's more out there than they can personally chase down, but they do their best. And supernatural stuff has come out from the shadows. The survivors are not always friendly and not always sane, but that's okay, because Shane and Lucas are not completely human and not completely sane either anymore. So that's a really fun little gritty series there, and there will be more to come. And as I mentioned, a novel in that series at some point, hopefully late in the year. The Jake Desmond Adventures. This is our steampunk alternative universe. And so lots of airships and clockworks and plenty of things blow up, mad doctors, genius inventors, and all kinds of things that go bump in the night. So Iron and Blood was the first book, and then Spark of Destiny will be the sequel to that. And Storm and Fury kind of comes in between those. Storm and Fury deals with 2 agents from the Department of Supernatural Investigation, Mitch Storm and Jacob Drangasavich, and is a collection of short stories and novellas that, again, appeared in different collections and anthologies, and now brought together in consecutive order in the Storm and Fury collection, and gives you a lot more background about the world and the characters and clockwork monsters and mad scientists and all of that. So a lot of adventure and plenty of things go boom. Salvage Rat and Tankards and Heroes are Larry's series. Salvage Rat, as you can see, has a new cover coming soon, and we'll be recovering Salvage Rat when we bring out Renegade, which will probably be in the fall of next year. But this is the space opera series where you've got Wyatt McCoy, who is a former fighter pilot, and he and a Beth, who is an anthropologist who's come upon some pretty dirty secrets against Kalok Enterprises and Interplanetary Mining Corporation, finds out some real dirt on them, and now they're running for their lives and running with a very different crew of folks and finding themselves at the center of an interplanetary rebellion. So Salvage Rat, the first book is out under a different cover, same book, we're just going to put a different cover on it. And then Renegade is the sequel coming out this fall. And there will be at least one more book in that series. We'll see how it goes, but there will be more. And then The Splintered Crown is the first book in the Tankards and Heroes series. And that is adventure in the style of, if you liked Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms and those kinds of adventure stories, but they're not tied to any gaming universe, although it has the feel of those sort of stories that some of us grew up reading and really loved and want to revisit because it's just fun. So The Splintered Crown is the first in that series, and you've got a tavern that has a demigoddess who has decided to hold court there and choose her heroes to send them off on adventures that they may not come back from, but that's okay because the tavern is used to that and they've got a cemetery out back. So you take your chances. Now, Darkwind is the other half of our imprints. That is Darkwind Press is the romance side of things. And of course, this is my Morgan Bryce pen name as Gail Z. Martin. I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, steampunk, and a lot more. As Morgan Bryce, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. So we had a pretty busy year in 2020 for Morgan as well. Loose Ends is the fourth book in the Badlands series. And that came out at the tail end of 2019. So I'm lumping it in here because when something comes out on December 31st, it kind of falls either way. But Loose Ends is set in Myrtle Beach, and that is our psychic medium and skeptical homicide cop chasing down supernatural killers in Myrtle Beach. Unholy is the most recent book in the Witchbane series, and it changes locations every book. And in this book, they were in Charleston, so there's a big overlap with Deadly Curiosities, as well as the Badlands folks. So we've got a guy who's chasing down the Dark Coven that murdered his brother, never intended to fall in love with the Coven's next intended victim. And they go on the road trying to stop a century-long cycle of ritual killings. Kings of the Mountain. You got two outlaw boys and a fast car and a love that can't be denied and werewolves. So if you think about mashing together Dukes of Hazzard and Supernatural, yeehaw, you got it right here with Kings of the Mountain. And this is the debut novel in that series with Dawson and Grady, and there will be more. Huntsman is the first in the Fox Hollow Zodiac series, and these are shifter novels, shifter romances set in the Adirondacks. And the perfect Zodiac pairings for the couples that get together. And in this case, we've got a fox fox shifter who is running from a hired killer, and a wolf shifter who just can't stop his protective instincts to save this man he's just met and really has a sense is going to be very, very important to him. So that's Huntsman. Imaginary Lover is book 7 in the Beyond the Realm Remember series. And that was kind of an interesting situation this year. A number of us who are in the Reading Past the Realms reader group, author group, went together on a themed series. The books all are standalone. They're all set in our own separate universes, but they all come to the same prompt. And the prompt is that someone comes up behind the main character, lays a hand on his shoulder and says, "This is important. You need to remember." And then the tagline for whatever the book is about. So this book is set in Fox Hollow. It is not the sequel to Huntsman, but a lot of the same characters show up in the book. And you've got a guy who wakes up on the side of the road, has no idea who he is, what he does, why he's there, what happened to him, but he can't shake a very insistent feeling that he needs to figure this out fast because something bad is going to happen. And so that is Imaginary Lover. Treasure Trail, which is one of the others set in Cape May, had its debut audiobook come out this year. So considering everything that was going on in 2020, we did manage to get a number of new titles out. We also had some new novellas and short stories that are standalone for the Morgan Bryce books. Leap of Faith is a novella that is a crossover between Badlands and Witchbane. So those characters had never spent a lot of time together, but Seth and Evan from Witchbane had been invited up to Myrtle Beach by Simon and Vic. And of course, they just expected that maybe they could hang out and have a little R&R, have some downtime between cases, and it never works out that way. They get pulled into chasing down some locked room murders and find themselves looking for the bad guy before the bad guy finds them. Romp is a Fox Hollow story. Again, it's set in Fox Hollow, not a sequel to Huntsman. And this is our adorable otter story, our otter shifter who is looking for true love. Nutty for You is a novella that appeared first in Heart to Heart 4, short-term anthology for charity, and since reverted. And this is what I refer to as my infamous squirrel shifter story. Trick or Treat at Caneham Castle is it's the second in the Caneham Castle series. We have multiple authors all writing about the same fictional castle in the same holiday seasons. So theoretically, they are all at the castle at the same time. And last year it was Christmas. This year it's Trick or Treat. And this year, my characters from the Treasure Trail series, showed up at the Caneham Castle on vacation. And of course, it didn't turn out to be a restful vacation. They ended up getting pulled into an old family scandal and a 700-year-old Knights Templar mystery. So what's coming in 2021? Well, we'll see how quickly things come. 2020, everything moved a little more slowly than we expected, but we still got a decent output, hoping to do a little better than that in 2021, but it all depends on how things go. The Devil You Know is the next Witchbane book. Point Blank will be the next Badlands novel. Blink will be the sequel to Treasure Trail in that series. Again, is the next Fox Hollow book. And Peacemaker is the debut for a brand new series, Sharps and Springfield. Best description there is if you remember the old Wild Wild West series, if Jim and Artie were together, they'd be like these guys. More audiobooks from Tantor because they have bought most all of the series. There are only a couple of things that weren't out yet when we did the last set of deals, so there will be a lot more audiobooks coming there. Of course, Kings of the Mountain will have a second novel. New Year's Eve at Caneham Castle is what we're expecting to bring out late in the year. So haven't decided which of my fictional couples will end up at the castle next, but they'll be there for New Year's Eve. The Magical Emporium is a shared world series that will be launching in January. My book doesn't come out until April. But again, the element of a magical store that shows up out of nowhere and vanishes into nowhere, but in the meantime provides the main character with an essential item that he needs to solve whatever problem it is that is the driver for the book. So I'll have, that'll be set in the Fox Hollow world. And as I said, my book will be coming out in April, but you'll be hearing more about that from us because there are a number of us writing in that series, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all comes together. Once Upon a Grimm is a male fairy tale romance anthology that slated to come out in March. Again, I'll have a Fox Hollow based novella there. And since we all had to pick a fairy tale to retell as a male romance, I picked The Three Billy Goats Gruff. So you're going to get to see how that comes together as a romance. And then Bookish Bits and Bites is a collection of stories and snacks. It is the Coastal Magic Convention anthology from its authors, guest authors for 2020-2021. And all of those are short stories that hinge on some crucial piece of food and also provide the recipe for that food. So that is going to be a Witchbane short story, and you'll get one of our rare family recipes in that story. Now, quick run through on the series. Witchbane, this is the one where Seth is hunting the coven that murdered his brother and has been part of a century-long cycle of ritual killings, falls in love with the guy he goes to try to save. And so we're 6 books in now. Spoilers, he and Evan get together and go on the road looking for the rest of the coven members. And so that plays out in different cities all up and down the East Coast. And The Devil You Know, which is set in Cleveland, comes in 2021. One of the other things that we'll be doing in my reader groups this year is I'll be doing some virtual travel logs and virtual tours using Google Earth and some of my own photos and some other resources to take you to the cities where the different series are based. And that's going to be a lot of fun because there are a lot of cities people haven't been to. Got a lot of readers from outside the country or just outside the region. So I'm really looking forward to that. Badlands. This is the psychic medium and the skeptical homicide cop hunting supernatural killers in Myrtle Beach. And we've got 4 books out right now. Loose Ends audio is in production. So that will be coming out hopefully soon. Again, I don't get dates. I just find out one day that the audio's up, which is great, but I know it is in production. And then Point Blank will be the new book, and that'll be coming later, later this spring or summer. Treasure Trail. This series started last year, and it's set in Cape May, New Jersey. We've got a guy who used to hunt down art fraud and art theft who teams up with a burned out Newark ex-cop, and they're in Cape May, New Jersey, and they end up chasing down, pardon me, mafia ghosts and old scandals. And it turns out that some of those old scandals aren't dead yet, but people might kill to keep them that way. So Treasure Trail is the first book there. Blink is the second one. That'll be coming probably this summer, and picks up shortly after with a whole new set of problems. Kings of the Mountain. This is the one I mentioned with the 2 guys hunting monsters in and around Boone, North Carolina. The mashup that, if you imagine Dukes of Hazzard and Supernatural, take some of those quintessential elements from those series, add werewolves and vampires, and the Blue Ridge Mountains, hot cars, former, everybody in that area, most of the people learned to drive fast, outrunning the revenuers during Prohibition. The King boys learned to drive fast, chasing vampires and protecting those moonshiners from the werewolves. So it's a fun series. And we've got a short story that is coming out in a Prolific Works Winter Wonderland giveaway January 1st, and that is The Christmas Spirit. So we get to see a little more of Dawson and Grady over Christmas in that short story, and then there will be more novels in that series. Fox Hollow. This is the Shifter series set in the Adirondacks. Fox Hollow is kind of interesting town. It was founded by shifters who didn't fit in with their respective pack, pride, whatever you call a gathering of their kind of shifter animal, found their way to Fox Hollow, created a community there. Then in the late 1800s, when the Fox sisters, the mediums, were discredited, in my telling of the history, their followers were not welcome anymore. Lilydale, of course, Lilydale was the famous spiritualist community in New York, and found their way to a haven in Fox Hollow. So you have a large spiritualist community and the Fox Institute for parapsychological, paranormal investigation. And you've got this haven for shifters. And so Huntsman's the first book in that series, again, is the second, coming out later this year. And then Imaginary Lover was set in the Fox Hollow series, in Fox Hollow area, even though it's not a direct sequel. Come on. Oops. Yes. Sorry. Sharps and Springfield. This is adjacent to the Storm and Fury books that you saw on the Gail and Larry side that are part of the Jake Desmond adventures. So these will be contemporary and crossover, and of course, except with the romance. So 2 agents for the Supernatural Secret Service chasing down supernatural threats and paranormal problems. And like I said, if Jim and Artie from Wild Wild West were together, they'd be these guys. So looking forward to doing this and having that crossover between the Iron and Blood series and the new series with Sharps and Springfield. Well, folks, that's a quick run through of our new releases, our upcoming releases, some cover reveals for you there, as well as a primer on the series in case you missed something. But please join our groups. We have some very active reader groups and fun groups, and we'd love to have you join us. The Shadow Alliance is the Gail and Larry reader group. So that's for all our non-romance stuff. And we have author interviews, we do contests, we do giveaways, we have fun stuff, we have regular postings. I'm out there every day, so please come join us. Now, you may have picked up that I'm a huge Supernatural fan. I don't know where you'd have ever seen that. I post about it all the time. But I do run a fairly good-sized Supernatural fan group at Supernatural TFWNC. We do all kinds of weekly and daily group things and have a lot of fun. So come on out there if you're a Supernatural fan. Of course, you're here in Continual, so you know one of our other groups. And we're dedicated to making Continual, which is the online ongoing multi-genre convention that never ends, the best it can possibly be. So thank you for being here, and please keep hanging out because we got a lot more good stuff to come. And then there's the Worlds of Morgan Bryce, which is the reader group for the romance series. And we also have weekly guest authors and contests and giveaways and fun stuff. And I am out there every day in the Shadow Alliance, Supernatural TFWNC, and Worlds of Morgan Bryce, and pretty much every day here in Continual. So great chance for interaction. Love to talk with you, love to chat and answer questions. So please join our groups because it's really the best way to find out all the news first, get to see the covers, get to hear about what's coming up, and lots of fun extras. Now, when I say there's a lot going on, this is what I'm talking about. On Mondays at 8 in the Supernatural group, we watch a classic episode on a Netflix watch party. Tuesdays, I drop into the Shadow Alliance with a live Facebook Live video, so you can ask me anything. Wednesdays, we do a weekly live Q&A with an author guest in the Shadow Alliance, introducing you to some of my author friends who write similar stuff that you might want to check out. We do a monthly author interview in the Supernatural group, people who write worlds that Sam and Dean could have walked into and felt right at home. We'll be starting a monthly book location virtual tour, alternating between the Shadow Alliance, the Worlds of Morgan Bryce, and my Morgan Bryce Instagram account. So that'll take you behind the scenes and show you some of the real life cities where the books are set, We'll talk about some of the things that inspired the books and some of the things that I may have taken a little authorial license with to make the series work. Thursdays, we have a live video Ask Me Anything Facebook Live in Worlds of Morgan Bryce. We do trivia in the Supernatural group, and we usually drop new Supernatural and romance panels here in Continual. On Friday, there is a 10 a.m. YouTube watch party in the Supernatural group where we watch a compilation of convention clips and fan vids and podcasts and a lot of fun stuff. In the Worlds of Morgan Bryce on Fridays, we have a guest author who drops in to answer 5 questions and do a giveaway. So there's always something new coming up there and some new people for you to meet. Saturday mornings, we're doing a replay of the Supernatural anime series. So it's kind of a Saturday morning cartoon. And when we finish that replay, then we'll be doing some watch parties for some of the podcasts dedicated to Supernatural in that hour. And on Sundays in the Supernatural group, we have Supernatural Sundays. And these are playlists of con and fan videos, as well as some of the convention videos about Supernatural that have run here in Continual. And then, of course, here in Continual, we have new panels and features every day. So there's just so much going on. We'd love to have you come join us in the groups. Come check out the books. Love to hear from people on Facebook and on Twitter and in Instagram. So come find us because there's a lot going on and a lot of great stuff coming up. And we're looking forward to getting to know you. I'm Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce, and I'm thrilled that you're here listening to our Podcasters Roadshow. So hang in there because we've got some other publishers coming up with some fantastic books, both new this year and coming up. You won't want to miss a thing. You're going to want to have your to-be pile added to because there's a lot of good stuff coming up. So thanks so much for joining us, and I will see you on Facebook and in the groups.